It's time for crime! And you're invited. In this game, Pegasus Spieler has finally brought the criminal mastermind known as Wally to justice by trapping all of his most antisocial urges in one large paper city. And by that, I mean there's no Wally here, but his spirit possesses this box like a crime ghost. You and probably one friend or one child are going to use this magnifying glass, these cards, and this giant map over here to solve all kinds of terrible not life anymores. And it is hard to overstate how large this impossibly detailed map really is. It's bigger than my table. Just look at it next to a And somewhere buried within this giant map are dozens of cases for you to solve, sleuthing and deducing your way through the lives of the tiny denizens in this disorientingly huge world. So how do you play? Well, first off, all the cards in this game are split into sets or cases, and each one will start by showing you exactly where a body is, and then ask you a number of questions as to how that body came to book an appointment at Dr. Death's haunted practice. Using your wits, deduction, and big bulging eyes, you're going to discover exactly how this deed came to pass. See, unlike a Where is Wally, MicroMacro gives you a huge map of non-linear time. Everything on this map has happened, will happen, or is currently happening, depending on how, when, or where you choose to look at it. Think of it as though time was laid on top of time, a sort of triple layer time lasagna, where things are stuck in physical perpetuity, but also going backwards or forwards, depending on the angle you're looking at it from. Now, if that all sounded confusing, I promise you it's not. I've just made it sound that way for entertainment purposes, as I often do. But to get this review back on its rails, how about we take a look at the very first case in the box. Now, to avoid spoilers, this is only one of 16 cases, and it is hilariously simple and easy, so I would encourage you to not care about spoilers. Trust me, famous television detective, there's no big mystery here, but you can skip to timestamp if you want to avoid it. Max Gland is the king of Crime City, and he's off to buy some new loafers with the money he embezzled from the orphanage. I promise this is canon, and I'm not just making it up. But before he buys the loafers, he's off to sink a cup of beer from the pub. But there's been a disaster, because he's lost his lovely, lovely hat. That's a crime, and we've got to solve it. Tracing his route back, we can see he enjoyed a soissage at the soissage stand. And look, the hat is firmly perched atop his bonds. And if we ogle the route between the soissage stand and the pub, we can see these ne'er-do-wells perching in a tree, ready to hoik the hat from his head. The two rascals are sitting on that park bench, enjoying their prize. Congratulations, detective, you have solved a bad crime. And that is case number 1, closed. Now, you probably thought that was very simple, and yes, soon murder does enter the picture, but hopefully that gave you a rough idea of how the crimes work in this game and how you solve them. You're scanning the map, answering questions, making deductions, and tracing activities, and all that is so intuitive that just reading through the first case teaches you the game. And look at that! The teach is over, and we're only 4 minutes and 6 seconds into the review so far. Look, here's the bottom line. MicroMacro Crime City fits in the just nice category. There's nothing here that's gonna blow your mind or change your world. It's all very solvable and very sweet, if by sweet you mean solving someone's one-way visit to the no zone. But despite MicroMacro being a little easy and a tad predictable, it is joyous as a thing. Please allow me to wax lyrical about it, starting with a section I'm gonna call Wise Wally. A common complaint about this game that I have almost entirely made up for the purposes of this review is that it is just a Where's Wally. My fictional friend, MicroMacro Crime City is to Where's Wally as Where's Wally is to looking at dust. Here's the skinny. Where's Wally asks you to find the thing and sadistically hides the thing amongst a million other things. Finding the thing is a singular moment of joy in an ocean of Sure, some of the illustrations you peek at along the way will make you, or maybe even but because those illustrations are fixed points in time, they are all payoff, no setup. Crime City is just plain better because it's asking you to find a bunch of the thing in a logical sequence. It's asking you to find a story rather than a singular moment. It's asking you to spend more time scanning this map for anything useful, not just a specific pattern of colour. And by asking you to properly scan, deduce, and focus, you're absorbing loads more lovely details because they might be related to the case. And that's cool. And that not only goes for the case itself, but also the little side chuckles and strange stories that you see along the way that just aren't related at all and never will be. And that's genius. And sometimes you'll scan a detail in one case thinking it completely irrelevant, but mentally log it in your brain only for that exact detail to become incredibly relevant a lot later on in a more important case. And that is genius. And do you know what greases the wheels of all of that? Let's talk about the illustration. All of the artwork in this game is endlessly charming, as well as being cutely macabre. The amount of stuff not to do with a case is delicious. The care in which the small stuff is sweated shows a joy and affection that has gone into this thing. The endless spirals of detail and charm makes this game into something that I want to frame. Or even better than framing it, pass it on. Give it to a friend, play it with your family, play it with your significant other. Show them that your boring hobby is not as boring and is more accessible than you might first think. With other games, you've got a time investment. You've got a sink that players need to get invested in the game and learn rules and complications each time. With MicroMacro, you can start playing instantly, and the elevator pitch is, what if Where's Wally, but Wally's dead? I'm in! And get this, if they like that, they'll be able to buy more of it. There's a sequel in the works at the moment, Be Still, My Criminal Heart. And you know, a sequel might be what's needed to push this game over into being a recommendation, because as it stands, as much as I like this thing, there are a couple of sticky points that I want to talk about. First up, let's talk about player count. This box advertises this game as for between 1 and 4 players. My recommendation is that this is a 2-player game with 3 at a push. The reason being is that if you have more than that, quickly the game becomes a kind of crime twister, and heaven knows nobody wants that, and playing it solo is kind of sad. The joy in this game is the revelations and sharing them with the other players around the table. If it's your bag, I'm not going to yuck your yum, but I do think that it shines at 2. Secondly, I do wish that some of these cases got a little bit fruitier or messed with the formula a bit more. They do, of course, build in complexity, but there's nothing that made me go, "Oh, that's clever." But lastly, and maybe most personally, I want to talk about whether you can play this game with smalls, childlets, or childrens. So this is a bit that I feel weirdly invested in, because this kind of thing was absolutely my jam as a child. I would have gone bonkers for this kind of thing. I loved the little detailed cities and spying all the little people going around their daily business. It was my thing, so much so that I used to draw weird little detailed city things. This is literally, it's not a goof, this is one of my actual childhood drawings. I loved this kind of thing. So I sort of wish that MicroMacro had toned down some of its more adult themes so that parents would feel more comfortable putting it in front of kids like me. Explaining motives for some of the murder here might be hard to directly be doing to a child, and maybe lead you into having conversations that you might not be entirely ready to have with your kid yet, for entirely different reasons to the murder itself. Now, of course, this box does say ages 12 plus on the cover, and I think for most people, that's the kind of age range you'd expect to have these slightly squirm-inducing conversations, but still, you'd like to know that going in to some extent. I mean, having that kind of thing sprung upon you while you're playing a little fun family board game, I mean, you're relaxing. It's a weekend. It's something you don't want to have to worry about. And I think what I'm getting at here is that the gameplay promise for MicroMacro is delightfully suitable for kids. But that juicy feast for the eyes clashes with the themes that are variably suitable. And to that end, I am going to put some variably minor spoilers for suitability underneath the video description, so if you are a concerned parent worried about whether you can play this game with your kid, or whether you'd be comfortable playing it with a younger kid or an older kid or whatever, that's all going to be in the video description if you want to read through that and check if there are some cases that you might want to avoid, or if you want to sidestep the game in its entirety. It'll be there. And I also think that the sequel said somewhere, this is very tenuous, don't believe me, that they're going to have little warnings on some of the cards, so they're making sure that you're prepared to talk about the thing in the case with your child, which is good. If any of that doesn't apply to you, then I reckon you should go ahead and get this game. It's joyous, it's fun, it's silly, it's light, it's nice, and it's cheap and shareable. It is just good. And that's definitely worth something in board games. And that is the end of this review, and I've got a really long one to do next, so I'm going to pack this all away and see you next time. Bye!